The FOMO around peptides is real. Let's face it, you can't escape a single day on social media right now without seeing some form of influencer giving a link or a discount code for 10 or 20% off on a pre-packaged peptide protocol that they probably have no idea how it even works. It's good for them because they're receiving a back-end check and maybe they've had some results using these peptides, but they probably have no competence. For starters, this video is for education purposes only. I'm not here to deliver any sort of medical advice. I'm here to share my experience working with HRT clinics and give you my raw and honest thoughts on HRT usage, steroid usage, and peptide usage, essentially in that order. Now, I've been in the health and wellness spectrum my entire life. I was literally born into it. My mom was a top bodybuilding contender in the 90s. My dad has owned and operated a supplement store in Montana for over 30 plus years. And in that 30 years, I have been surrounded by these topics my entire life. It doesn't make me an expert, but what I have come to is my own discernment on what's BS and what there is a level of truth on. And what I've seen in the health and wellness industry over the last 30 years is pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. There's a lot of hype and there's a lot of marketing around specific aspects of health that these companies tie and attach their marketing and their message behind to create profitability instances, moments where they can essentially collect cash from consumers. What's a rarity these days is finding companies that actually operate under a moral code that is conducive to the long-term success and health of their clients. The idea of working with a health concierge clinic or an HRT clinic should be that you're wanting to break free from working with your incompetent doctor that you go and see just your average everyday doctor that took one class 25 years ago on hormonal replacement. Because when you go to your traditional doctor and you do some form of men's health panel, first off, you're going to have to pull their arm and leg just to get a health panel done on your testosterone. And we're talking the most basic, bare bones, blood panel here. This is a free testosterone, total testosterone, and estradiol. And even then, maybe a free testosterone is not even tested. Sometimes they're only testing total testosterone, which in the grand scheme of things means very little. With that being said, the idea of these health concierges, these telemedicine clinics really blew up in 2020 with COVID. It was to get away from these incompetent doctors and work with specialists, people that specialize in hormonal replacement treatment. The reality is they're not really any better than the noted influencers that I've spoken about that are just creating prepackaged cookie cutter programs for profitability. What I've noticed, and I've worked with a handful of these companies, is sure, they'll send out a blood panel, and sometimes you have to go into a lab core, which is what I've had to do with every other company besides the company that I'm working with now. And this isn't a paid endorsement for me to work with Elevation Health Concierge Clinic and Brad Clifford. This is a educational video of me sharing my experience in the past and what I've seen and the shortcomings of most of these clinics. Most of the clinics that I've worked with, you go into a lab core and you do a blood panel. Now, is the blood panel typically better than your traditional blood panel that you get at your normal everyday doctor? Absolutely. Is it extensive enough to create enough of a window into your biology to really solve problems on a cellular level? Probably not. What I've noticed is they get just enough information to be able to write some form of prescription. Typically, that prescription is going to be based around an HRT protocol. Most HRT protocols, when you go to some form of clinic or men's health concierge or optimization clinic of any type, at any time, they're going to write you a protocol and it's almost identical across the board. They're going to give you 150 to 200 milligrams of testosterone. They're going to give you some form of aromatase inhibitor, typically a Arimidex or anastrozole. And then sometimes, not every time, they're going to give you HCG to keep your FSH and your LH going. So your little nut bag can actually fire the signaling between your gonads and your pituitary to continue to produce testosterone on its own. Sometimes, depending on your age, they'll leave that out, and you won't actually be taking that, and so that portion of your medical protocol might be left out as well, depending on where you're at and if you actually require that or not. With that being said, there has been times where I've worked with these clinics where they've literally had me do the blood work, and I've been speaking with essentially a front man, which is their salesperson. And I was supposed to speak with the doctor, like actually have a clinical sit down with the doctor to go over the numbers and the information. And we weren't able to find a time that worked for us. And they would still prescribe the medication and the protocol. And the person giving the advice was the actual salesperson and not the doctor. I've experienced this with multiple companies, not just one, with multiple companies. There's been times where I've literally been able to get a prescription of some form if I wanted it, okay? And I didn't even have to speak with the doctor, which is a bit alarming to say the least. You haven't gone through any sort of back and forth questionnaire. The client has, if they're not already competent or have done their own personalized research, this poses a risk because the person's heading into something, getting information from somebody who's unlicensed. Now, is this person typically more competent? Have found that the salespeople at most of these companies are more competent than your average everyday doctor, but that still doesn't make up for the lack of care and guidance that's truly required when you're prescribing these types of medications to individuals. That's my beef. I worked with a company that essentially was a glorified drug clinic for people where they literally would give their clients anything that they wanted to purchase. It wasn't really anything that it wasn't based off of true biology. It was based off of your purchasing power. So if you wanted to buy some of these bodybuilder compounds that are legal pharmaceutical drugs, they would write you a script for it. And when it came to peptides, it was just as much as you wanted and whatever you wanted. And they were going to accept any invoice that you were willing to pay. It didn't matter what your biology said. It didn't really matter what the numbers meant, or there was really no discussion based around it. The discussion was based around how much are you willing to pay and what are ultimately your goals. And of course, every bro that goes to these companies, their goal is to get massive, huge, and have the best results with the least amount of work. That's what I've seen on an HRT level. That's my experience when it's come from peptides. I worked with the company in 2020 that was doing peptide protocols, but it was not regulated like I have experienced with Elevation Health Concierge Clinic. And so that makes me feel a lot better working with Elevation, because in the past I have seen these clinics be incredibly, not misleading is not the word, but just they're missing the mark in their level of attention to care. And for most consumers, that should that should create some form of question: do I really want to work with these people or not? And most of the time you're putting your trust into individuals, and this comes to your health. And when you're starting to utilize these pharmaceutical drugs, because that's what they are, whether it be exogenous testosterone or progesterone or estradiol, whatever these things are, it's exogenous. I mean, they're pharmaceutical medications. And where my stance is on peptides is it's still in the research and development stage. Just like SARMs. SARMs were in the research and development stage for forever. Now, there are some SARMs that may have some benefits given specific circumstances, but a lot of time those SARMs really mess people up. They were in this R&D phase for a long time. People got a lot of results from them, but because you get results from something doesn't mean that it's inherently good. It also doesn't mean that it's inherently bad. What I'm getting at here is, number one, you have to have your own level of competence going into these level of conversations and these interactions with these companies. Number two is you have to let your gut make the decision as if taking this thing, whether it be exogenous hormones and or peptides, is going to be the best suited scenario for me in the short, medium, and long term, not what my ego wants me to accomplish. My belief when it comes to steroid use, I grew up around it my entire life. I have seen people abuse steroids, and I've seen people use steroids in specific use cases, especially with the goals and correlation if they're bodybuilders, because that's what I grew up in, is the era of bodybuilding, is that you're not going to become a IFBB pro by being all natural. But I've seen average everyday dudes pumping stupid amount of of needles into their butt cheeks for average ass results. And I've seen it on every single, like in everywhere I've ever gone. Grams of gear to still be average and maybe take second or third at a regional show and never be able to make the big stage. Here's a reality check, Chief. Your genetic makeup is not in correlation for the goal that you have in your head. Your ego is too inflated for what your genetics potential really is. Listen, I'm not going to go dunk a basketball and go in the NBA, but you bet your ass I could hit a nasty double leg. My genetic potential allowed me to be able to do that at a high level because I understood what I was capable of. And there's no amount of testosterone, there's no amount of trenbolone, there's no amount of anything in terms of an exogenous steroid or peptide use that's going to help me become an NBA basketball player. With that being said, I don't suggest or support steroid use. What I'm saying is you use your own discernment. You're an adult out there. Don't fall into the hype. The same thing goes with peptide usage. Don't fall into the FOMO. You're not missing out on anything if you're taking your time. It's going to come down to this. Before exogenous hormones or peptide use, you should dial in everything else. And most people say, oh, I eat pretty good and I train pretty hard. It's probably time to take these things. No, you should maximize your natural potential and your committed potential. Those are two different things. Natural potential and committed potential are two different things, but you should maximize those things before you even start to look into supplements and things, because you might just be wasting money when in reality you could be dieting. I haven't taken any GLP-1s. I haven't taken Retta. Maybe after the blood work and based upon my goals, maybe I do decide to take some of those things. I haven't yet. I've taken BBC 157 and TB 500. I'm currently not taking them. So moving forward, I'm not putting any, and I'm losing body fat because I am being highly calculated with my nutrition. My training protocol is highly calculated. I have attention to detail to those two aspects of my life. I know, historically speaking, every single time I've ever made the greatest gains in the gym, it's came down to how well do I eat and how do I train. And then lifestyle, reducing stress, reducing cortisol levels, those are all going to take sleep is going to play a role into that. But I control the controllable variables. I've yet to take Retta or GLP-1s or any of these other pharmaceutical, they're not even pharmaceutical. I mean, they're essentially pharmaceutical drugs dressed up as research and development products. Now, that shouldn't scare you because I'm not saying that they're inherently bad. What I'm sharing is we have to utilize these tools as such as tools. So I'm getting leaner, stronger, and faster than I've ever been. And I haven't taken I have taken BPC 157 and TB 500, so that'd be a lie. I have taken those things. I'm not taking them currently. I'm not losing weight because of Retta GLP-1s. I might take a Motzi. I might take these things. I might take a testosterone. I might take an IGF-1, but it's going to be based off of my biology. So my ending statement here, because this has gone on long enough, is if you're going to put anything exogenous in the body, whether it be hormones, steroids, peptides, drugs of any sort, alcohol, I think you should really look at, number one, what's your long-term vision with such? And what's the outcome of improper consumption? And then what's the outcome of proper utilization of things? And if there's a diminishing return on either end, I suggest not to commit to it. If there's a rate of return that's in your favor, then you must set up a protocol, a plan, and execute properly. That's going to be the highest indicator of your success is your level of execution on anything that you do. So there's my honest thoughts and feelings. Peptides, they've been around for a really long time. Steroids have been around for an even longer time. I've seen it, the good, the bad, the ugly. I've seen people do copious amounts of these exogenous forms of steroids and still have just the most average physiques, average like strength, and just have the worst diminishing returns in terms of how they feel, how they look, the effects on the body. It's just like, yeah, you're really pushing the boundaries for absolutely no upside. So my suggestion is become competent, number one, and then pair up with people, professionals that are even more competent to a level that you could never even get to. That's my suggestion. There's my thoughts. If this video was valuable, toss it in the comment below. If you have any questions, please let me know. Peace out.